Hello, and today is a special day because today would have been the 79th birthday of my grandmother. So I figured that I would read from one of the books that she gave me before she passed away. It's just a small little book about butterflies and moths because she used to be a photographer. So let's get started. Introduction. Butterflies and moths tend to elicit a range of emotions in us, from wonder at their incredible beauty, their ability to metamorphose, or their unbelievable feats of physical achievement, to dismay at the voracious appetites for our crops and clothing. For many of us, simply observing butterflies skipping across the flowers in our yards is pleasure enough. However, the world of butterflies and moths is full of remarkable and often unknown facts and details. Butterflies and moths belong to the order Lepidoptera. This Greek word translates as scales and wing. The most obvious feature that separates them from other orders of insects is their scaled wings. There are in excess of 160,000 known species of Lepidoptera in the world, and only about 10% of these are butterflies. They can survive in an incredibly diverse range of habitats, from frozen Arctic tundra to high-altitude mountain slopes to humid rainforests. It is perhaps this diversity and adaptability that has enabled the Lepidoptera to survive on the planet for the last 140 million years. The first Lepidoptera were primitive moths. Butterflies evolved around 40 million years ago. The object of this book is to provide a glimpse into the fascinating world of butterflies and moths using a very small selection of the known species that currently inhabit our planet. Each butterfly entry points out the significant features of an individual species, which can either aid identification or simply illustrate some of its more interesting attributes. Obviously, we're not going to be going over every single butterfly in this book. In fact, I'm probably just going to skim the broad details, but Identification. Butterflies and moths are members of the insect class, sharing the same key features of 3 pairs of legs and 3 body parts: head, thorax, and abdomen. In addition to these features, Lepidoptera also have 2 pairs of wings, the forewings and the hindwings, which are covered with scales. These scales reflect light, revealing the colors and patterns that are so important when identifying different species. The pair of antennae on the head of the butterfly is the primary sense organ, receiving smells, pheromones, and vibrations. A butterfly's proboscis is its tongue, enabling it to suck up food, nutrients, and moisture. It is hollow and contains 2 parallel tubes. The end bears the taste sensors. Different species will have different lengths of proboscis. Some members of the hawk moth family have a proboscis that exceeds their own body length and is capable of piercing fruits or beehives, whereas others, such as Luna moths, have no mouth parts at all and cannot feed as adults. Another organ is the labial palps, used to clean the proboscis in the eyes and to sense the taste of food. The American snout butterfly has a particularly large palps. The head also bears a pair of compound eyes, capable of detecting color and movement. The jointed legs contain sensors at the feet, which enable a butterfly to identify the plant it has just landed on, particularly important for females that need to lay eggs on a specific host plant. Probably the first point of observation when identifying a butterfly or moth is the color and patterning that is displayed on the wings. When a butterfly is in flight, this can be particularly difficult to do. It is when it's at rest that we get the opportunity to closely examine the markings of a particular species. Look for the coloring, any significant patterns, eye spots, or markings. The majority of butterflies hold their wings closed above their bodies, leaving only the underside visible. Some will hold their wings out flat, perhaps sunning themselves, affording us a glimpse of their often more brightly colored upper side. The color of the body can also be a useful feature. Many species show abdomens that are highly colored or banded, or have markings on the head or thorax. The keen lepidopterist should also notice the shape and size of the butterfly, whether there are any wing streamers or tails, and the general shape of the wings: broad, narrow, pointed, rounded, scalloped, or fringed. Be aware when attempting identification that several species can vary in appearance. Newly emerged or fresh butterflies can have brighter colors, whereas older specimens can have faded wings or even show wear and tear. Butterflies appearing in different seasons can vary, and many species can vary depending on whether they are from a first brood or a later one. Males and females of the same species can also differ, either completely or only slightly, perhaps in size or tone. Then, of course, there are butterflies that vary between different regions, confusingly appearing in a number of different forms. Where appropriate, any species and appearance have been included in the descriptions provided here. Butterfly or moth. In some respects, the differences between butterflies and moths may seem rather arbitrary. Although moths are regarded as the butterfly's less colorful, less attractive cousins, there are a great many beautiful, highly colored daytime flying moths. Conversely, a large number of butterflies can appear rather dull and insignificant, and are often mistaken for moths. There are, however, a number of general features that separate moths from butterflies. Butterflies are diurnal, daytime flyers, whereas a great majority of the moths are nocturnal, flying, and if appropriate, feeding at night. They also differ structurally. When resting, the wings of butterflies are usually held together upward over the back of the body, whereas moths will fold their wings flat across the body, the hind wing tucked beneath the forewing. In flight, the wings of the moth are coupled together with the use of special bristles on the hind wing, which catch hold of the forewing. Butterflies lack this feature. Instead, their hind wing is expanded underneath the forewing, providing support with which to fly. The antennae of each also differ. Butterflies have very slender antennae which are clubbed at the end. Moths lack this clubbing, having either slim or feathered antennae. Butterflies also tend to have more slender bodies, whereas some moths can be very stocky and broad in shape. There are, of course, exceptions to all these rules. The colorful daytime moths of the Eurydidae family and the Australian regent skipper butterfly, with its moth-like wing coupling device, are just two examples among many. Conservation. With so many different species of butterfly and moth in existence, it can be hard to believe that they are seriously threatened. However, a number of fascinating and beautiful butterflies and moths are in peril from either habitat change or overzealous collectors. As people become increasingly interested in observing and recording sightings of butterflies, efforts to conserve species have increased. Loss of native habitats is the most serious threat. On a large scale, massive deforestation, such as in Central America and Asia, can affect many different species. However, even on a small scale, many butterflies rely on plants that we consider weeds, such as nettles, thistles, or dandelions. The use of pesticides can have a harmful effect on some species, and pesticides that target destructive butterflies, such as the gypsy moth, are also responsible for the near eradication of other innocent species. There are some conservation methods in place. Many species are legally protected from collectors. Others have been reintroduced to native environments. However, many butterflies and moths remain under the threat of extinction. The life of the butterfly. Life cycle. There are 4 stages in the life cycle of all Lepidoptera: egg, caterpillar, pupa, and butterfly, and each stage is vital. Butterflies are not simply attractive pollinators of garden flowers. Their ultimate goal is to mate and successfully reproduce. Likewise, caterpillars must not only feed and store up energy, they also have to ensure they are not victims of hungry predators. Laid singly, in small groups or huge numbers, eggs can take up either a few days or several weeks to hatch. They can be one of a number of shapes, colors, and even sizes. Some eggs are tiny and others are surprisingly large. Eggs are usually laid on specific host plants by the female butterfly, which walks across the plant surface using the sensors in her legs to determine which is the correct one. Less fussy egg can be released in flight, particularly those whose caterpillars feed upon grass. Once the egg hatches, the newly emerged caterpillar begins by eating the hard shell, then it gets to work eating its host plant. Caterpillars also appear in a wide variety of sizes, shapes, and colors. They are particularly vulnerable to predators, birds, other insects, and lizards are among the many animals that prey on these butterflies' larvae, and so their appearance is often determined by their need to protect themselves. Poisonous caterpillars may appear brightly colored to ward off attack, or bear aggressive spines that can irritate if touched or ingested. The caterpillars of the arctid moth family are particularly hairy and collectively referred to as woolly bears. Some caterpillars display very unusual and somewhat aggressive features, such as horns, alarming tail whips, and false eye spots. Many swallowtail caterpillars have an organ called an osmeterium, rather like an inflatable horn, which releases a repulsive scent. The caterpillar of the pus moth has a number of these aggressive attributes, and can also spit formic acid for good measure. Many other caterpillars adopt rather more passive but equally successful methods of protecting themselves from predators, either adopting camouflage or simply in or beneath foliage. Caterpillars spend most of their time eating, and as their bodies grow, they slough off their skin, rather like a snake. Most caterpillars will shed their skin several times before they are large enough to begin pupating. For most species, this means that the final skin shedding reveals not another caterpillar, but its chrysalis or cocoon. For others, particularly moths, the chrysalis is spun from a single thread of silk, encasing the caterpillar in a protective shell that it can begin its transformation. Once the caterpillar has revealed or spun its chrysalis, it enters the pupa stage. As a pupa, it is extremely vulnerable to predators since it is completely immobile. Consequently, pupae will adopt a number of strategies to protect themselves. Most pupae are incredibly well camouflaged, resembling dried leaves, twigs, fresh buds, and even bird droppings, such as those of the swallowtail family. Some pupa casings are covered with spines, while others containing a poisonous butterfly will advertise their inedible status. Many species pupate underground, within plant roots or even inside ant nests, such as the large blue butterfly pupa. It usually takes around 2 weeks for pupation to complete, although some species can take much longer, several months or even 2 years, depending on external circumstances. Once metamorphosis is complete, the butterfly must break out of the chrysalis. At this stage, the wings are crumpled up. It is the body that must be forced out of the shell. As the butterfly takes in air for the first time, its thorax and abdomen can expand and its wings can begin to swell. The wings are composed of 2 membranes, which are fed by veins, and as these fill up, so the wings are expanded to take on their final shape. However, before it flies, the fresh butterfly must allow its wings to dry out and harden, a process that can take several hours. Behavior. The lifespan of a butterfly varies from species to species. Some live for less than a week, others long enough to migrate through the winter months. But the typical adult butterfly will, during its lifetime, fly, feed, mate, and migrate. Feeding butterflies use their proboscis to suck up liquid nutrients, such as flower nectar, tree sap, rotten fruit juices, honeydew, blood and fecal liquid, and even in some cases, animal tears. Some male butterflies, such as the blue triangle, will feed from the mud found in puddles or on riverbanks, probably seeking extra nutrients necessary for reproduction. Reproduction can only take place when butterflies of the same species successfully identify one another. This can be particularly tricky when different species look similar or when environment makes it awkward to spot a potential mate. Some butterflies are dependent upon their pheromones or scent to entice their partner. Others will engage in elaborate courtship displays which communicate compatibility as well as general suitability. Mating pairs will class together either landed or in air and can remain attached for anything from 20 minutes to 24 hours. The male then usually heads off in search of a new mate, while the female begins to search for a suitable place to deposit her eggs. The majority of butterflies remain within the same territory for their whole lives, being able to satisfy their needs within their chosen habitat and range. However, some species migrate across relatively long distances in order to take advantage of potential food sources from other areas. During warm periods, butterflies will migrate in order to follow the fine weather. For instance, the monarch, a well-known migrant, will head north across the North American continent, following the spread of new flowers brought by spring. In most cases, the butterflies that migrate out of their range do not return home. Instead, the next generation heads back to the native area as the seasons change. In Europe, well-known migrant butterflies include pale clouded yellows and painted ladies. These are generally native to North Africa and Mediterranean Europe, but can regularly be found as far as North Scandinavia during the summer months. Other butterflies, such as the red admiral, migrate in order to overwinter or hibernate. They seek out temperate but cool climates where they can remain safely immobile, reserving their energy until the arrival of spring. The onset of winter is a challenge that all species of butterfly and moth have to face. Different species cope with this period when little or no food is available in particular ways. Many overwinter as eggs or choose this time to pupate. Those that are already adults may hibernate. Some caterpillars, too, are able to shut down their metabolism to wait out the winter months. Habitat. The relationship between butterflies and their habitat is crucial. Particular habitats are chosen by individual species because they have evolved adaptations suitable to those habitats. All Lepidoptera need warmth to provide them with the energy to fly. Therefore, butterflies are found in sunny, tropical, and temperate regions. They will need specific foods both for breeding and for the adults to feed. Typical habitats will, therefore, be places such as open woodland where the sunlight can penetrate and where there are plentiful flowers, or meadows and grassland, heathland, and coasts with their specific flora or mountain slopes. Powerful butterflies will survive in forest or woodland canopies, living up at the treetops. Weak flyers prefer to stay close to the ground among shrubs and trees, which will provide protection from winds. Butterflies found in woodland will often be colored red, brown, or gray, so they resemble dry leaves or bark. Others are bright green, like fresh leaves. Butterflies are dependent upon these particular places, and the loss of native habitats can only have dire consequences for their numbers. Survival. With so many potential predators, butterflies and moths employ a number of techniques to aid survival. Many species are inedible. Their caterpillars feed from host plants that contain poisons, storing these in their bodies so that an adult butterfly can benefit from the chemicals. The members of the Heliconius subfamily contain the poisons found in the larval food plant passionflower. poisonous butterflies advertise this fact to birds, lizards, and other insects with their brightly colored and patterned wings. Many edible butterflies take advantage of these poisonous species by copying their appearance. This technique is known as mimicry. Butterflies will mimic others for one or two reasons. Either to appear to be poisonous when not, as does the non-poisonous mimic of the monarch, the viceroy, or to emphasize their own poisonous status. Edible species that do not mimic use other tactics. Many will adopt camouflage as an effective technique to avoid becoming prey. The Indian leaf butterfly is an excellent example of this, as are a number of moths, including the brindled beauty. Others will use their wing markings to confuse or frighten predators. Distinctive markings can suggest an even larger predator is at hand. The owl face seen by the enemy is simply the wings of the owl butterfly. The snake's head among the leaves is actually the hooked forewing of the atlas moth. Eye spots are a particularly effective way of confusing and warding off enemies. Some butterflies, such as the blue morpho, have a solid color on their upper side, but large eye spots from below which startle a predator when they are flashed unexpectedly. Butterflies use eye spots to frighten their enemies, such as the peacock, can often find themselves with ragged wings as a result of inquisitive pecks from confused birds. Although dangerous, these pecks warn the peacock of danger, giving it time to fly away. Family groups of butterflies and moths. The selection of butterflies here also includes members of the Rhiodinidae family or meadowlarks. Most species of this family are found in South American tropics, and, as their common name suggests, many are decorated with gold, silver, and copper metallic scales. Nymphalidae, brushfoots. This is the largest and most diverse butterfly family, with over 6,000 known species worldwide. Commonly referred to as brushfoots, these butterflies can appear to have only 4 legs. The final pair of legs are much smaller, often hairy, and are adapted for cleaning the butterfly's antenna and body instead of walking. Many species share distinctive flight behavior, flapping and gliding instead of fluttering, while others are noted for feeding on the juices of rotten plants, fruit, and even animals. Nymphalidae cover a range of sizes and appearances and contain subfamilies such as the fritillaries, monarchs, emperors, tortoiseshells, and admirals. Hesperidae, skippers. These small butterflies are generally recognized by their flight behavior, skipping rapidly from flower to flower. European skippers are usually small with dull colors, whereas their tropical relatives can appear bolder and brightly colored. They have large, stout bodies and broad heads, and the antennae often lack the clubbed ends of most other butterfly species. The caterpillars of skippers live in spun tubes attached to host plants, which protect them from predators. Skippers are believed to be the most primitive butterfly family, with over 3,000 members. Satyridae, browns and satyrs. As the common name of this family suggests, all Satyridae have some kind of brown color. They are generally inconspicuous, flying low in search of food such as rotting fruit and honeydew. However, they can be observed basking in bright sunlight. All Satyridae, however, patterned above, bear at least one eye spot on their underside. This is their main form of defense, since they are not generally poisonous. Moths. Of the 127 currently recognized families of Lepidoptera, most are moths. As with butterflies, they vary enormously, ranging from small experts in camouflage to large and dramatic daytime flyers, such as the Uranids, and only a small selection can be described here. Arctid moths. This group contains over 10,000 species worldwide and comprises 2 distinct groups of butterflies known as tiger moths and ermines. Their bright colors and eye-catching patterning has earned the first group the popular name of tiger moths. The coloring of these species is a sign of their poisonous status. As with their butterflies, these displays act as warning to potential predators. Ermines, as their name suggests, are pale with black spots. Bombacid and saturnid moths. These are more commonly known as silk moths, a family which includes a species which has been important to human societies for thousands of years. Emerging bombacid moths lack mouthparts and are unable to feed, relying on the energy stored during the caterpillar stage. Another family of silk moths is the saturnid, or emperor moths, large and attractive species, many of which spin a coarse silk for their cocoons, which can be harvested for human use. Bromade and Noctuidae moths. Bromade moths are large macro moths, usually displaying large eye spots, which earn some member species the title of owl moths. Also known as owl moths are the Noctuid family, although this is due to their nocturnal behavior. Unlike the bromide moths, Noctuids can range between small micromoths to larger macro moths. Some can be drab and unremarkable, others as striking as butterflies. The Noctuidae is one of the largest families containing over 25,000 species, and it also includes a number of highly destructive varieties of caterpillar. Similar to noctuid moths, but often slightly hairier, the lamentrid moths. Within this group, only the male is capable of flight. The female is generally large-bodied and immobile, with wings which cannot function. Laciocampid and nododontid moths. These are stocky and often furry moths, which, unlike all others, lack the wing coupling device which distinguishes moths from butterflies. Their caterpillars are also hairy and they form egg-shaped cocoons, hence the common name egger moths. Another family distinguished by hairy features is the nododontid, which moths bear tufts of scales on the forewing which can stand upright when the moth is at rest. As a result, these moths are usually referred to as prominents. Sphingidae moths. Better known as hawk moths, the family of Sphingidae consists of around 1,000 members. These are distinguished by their fast, powerful flight and particularly long tongues or proboscis. A number of hawk moths resemble other species of insect and even birds, such as the hummingbird clearwing. Another family contains effective mimics is the Cicidae, which particularly favor wasps and hornets as models. Geometrid moths. The second largest family of moths is the geometrid, with over 15,000 species found worldwide. These moths are often slender-bodied and weak flyers. Many rely on camouflage for survival, although there are of course some exceptions. Their caterpillars are properly known as inchworms or loopers for their method of drawing up the center of their body in order to move forward, having legs only at the head and tail ends. And finally, caterpillars. Moths themselves are rarely pests. It is the caterpillars which can do damage, and Pyralidae and Ctenidae families are represented here by their most infamous member species. Pyralid larvae feed on the stored grains and other foodstuff, whilst the Ctenidae caterpillars in the wild will feed on animal detritus, fungi, and lichen, and once inside the home will consume natural fibers such as cotton and wool. Thank you for joining me today on this short reading. This was from A Pocket Guide to Butterflies and Moths by Elizabeth Balmer. It has many lovely pictures and even a glossary at the back for terms you may be unfamiliar with. Thank you for listening.